How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron White with White Light Astrology, giving you guys your August 2019 horoscope for Libra, Sun, and Rising. Thank you guys so much for being here and liking and sharing and commenting and subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys. We are ending July and starting August off with not only the new moon in Leo, but Mercury stationing direct. And even though the new moon's happening on July 31st, Mercury stationing direct on August 1st, I think this is going to be a pretty nice way to start off the month. With this new moon in Leo happening in your 11th house, it is also joining up with Venus and Mars and the Sun all in Leo right now. And while all of these planets are in your 11th house, you're looking to expand your social influence, you're really being kind of put in the spotlight with your friends, which may be a little bit nice right now. This is a more positive time, and this new moon in Leo, I think, is really going to help shape more of your definition and clarity of how you see yourself in friendships and in bigger groups of people, and seeing more of different ways that you can be expressive of yourself and show your true leadership skills. Now, also on August 1st, that is when Mercury is going to station direct in Cancer in your 10th house. Now, Mercury retrograding in Leo probably caused some either miscommunication or maybe caused like a little bit of errors and problems coming up within the context of bigger groups of people. But as Mercury stations direct, I think this is just about saying what you need to say and addressing it in more of a public fashion. And maybe this has something to do with your career as well, or, you know, people within the workplace. But saying what you need to say, having that communication, you know, like that line established, and things getting a little bit more clear. And then as we jump 10 days ahead on August 11th, that's when we're going to have Mercury actually move back into Leo. And now that Mercury's out of Cancer in your 10th house, it's done in that area, it can come back to the 11th house of, not only friendships and social groups and whatnot, but Mercury, the communicator, the messenger, the expressor with, facial expressions, body language, how we speak. Mercury going into Leo is going to become a lot more expressive, going to become a lot more in the light, be a lot more seen. And as Mercury goes back into Leo, into your 11th house, I think this is about refining that confidence and being able to express more and find more solace within your friends, but also having a little bit more fun. And also on August 11th, that is when we're going to have Jupiter stationed direct. And this is a pretty big deal because while Jupiter, when it first entered Sagittarius and started moving forward, Jupiter was creating all of this room and expanding all of this stuff and having you ask questions and, see different potentials. And as Jupiter's retrograded, it's made you beg questions and think about what you believe. And as Jupiter starts to move forward, this is when you're going to start seeing a lot more of those beliefs start to manifest themselves. And as Jupiter has been in your 3rd house of communication, written language, teaching, short distance travel, siblings, it's kind of a impersonal house, but the 3rd house is also kind of like how you utilize yourself. And while Jupiter's been retrograde, you've been trying to figure out better ways to really use yourself and apply yourself in the best ways possible. I think Jupiter moving direct is going to present a lot more opportunities to use the things that you're good at, that you naturally have adept to you, for better circumstances and for your growth. And then on August 14th, that is when we're going to have Venus conjoin the Sun. And this is also really important because Venus is now on the other side of the Sun. It's as far away as it's going to get. And it's going Kazemi, so it's basically getting purified by fire. Venus is getting cleansed and she's getting recharged. And this is in the sign of Leo, so this has a lot to do with expression and being in the light. We all need validation, we all need to be seen, and we all need to be heard and understood, and being able to express that, being able to find value in that, being able to have, courage to be out there and, rock it and kill it. That's like Venus conjoining the Sun, and this is happening in Leo. This is happening in your 11th house. So, this is a time to reach out to friends and connect with bigger and wider groups of people. And, maybe you're alone and isolated right now. I would challenge you to actually get out of your own way and start, using this energy for yourself. But, if maybe you don't have friends, maybe this isn't that's not what's going on for you. I think the big thing to learn right now is finding out where you can connect yourself to people for a higher ideal, for a higher reason. Because it's not just about friends, it's about humanitarian things. Your midheaven can also fall in Leo, so this does have to do with career stuff. It's up to you to find out where this is really happening and where you're really seeing this happen in your life. And then on August 15th, the next day, that's when we're going to have the full moon in Aquarius. And this is also, I don't want to say important, but this is pretty nice. Because, we're finally getting to lunations in Leo and Aquarius where there's no eclipses there, finally. And while the sun's in Leo, connecting you, making you have more fun, this, full moon is kind of like realizing what is important in a sense. Full moon's always about realizing things, seeing both sides of the story, seeing the bigger picture. This is in the sign of Aquarius, which is about connecting the dots and having more, reality within your thought process, being able to connect the dots and have sense of structure, but in a more idealistic sense, in a more thoughtful and spirit sense, rather than Capricorn, which is very much on paper. But this is happening in your 5th house of love and romance, of sex and children, creation, art, music, hobbies. The 5th house is an extension of the 1st, so this has a lot to do with what makes you you, what makes you unique, what makes you personable. And I think this full moon's about realizing more of what you want and more of where you can start to be more creative, because as you've been having more fun and expression in this 11th house, the 5th house is showing you what you can do with that. And also on August 15th, that's when we're going to have Mercury finally leave its shadow. And all of that Mercury retrograde stuff is now wrapped up, and Mercury can start to continue moving forward in Leo, being more expressive, seeing more power and authority in its voice, but also being able to know and have discernment between when it's the right time to speak up versus when it's the right time to not say anything and not cause strife. And then on August 18th, that's when we're going to have Mars enter Virgo. Now, by the time we get to the end of the month, basically everything is going to be in Virgo. And this is going to be important for you guys because Virgo rules your 12th house. The 12th house is a weird house. It's, about suppressed things that you don't acknowledge about yourself, things that you can easily avoid or be oblivious to. It has a lot to do with isolation and alienation. It's about being alone. It's about being hidden. It's about, more of reflecting of yourself. And while Mars goes into Virgo, Mars, of course, is a malefic planet. It is the planet of, frustration, anger, it is action and our energy. And while it's in Virgo, it wants to be specific. It wants to be acute. It wants to take, precise actions. Not big ones, but little ones that all add up. And while Mars does enter your 12th house, this may be a little bit difficult to have the energy to really do everything you want. While Mars is in Virgo, you may be able to still cross your T's and dot your I's, but while it's in the 12th house, this may be a frustrating time of not being able to accomplish the little things and kind of seeing, where that problem lies and how frustrating it can be of not being able to attend to these smaller details. So while Mars is in Virgo and it is transiting your 12th house, this is also a good time to really reflect on yourself and, be a little isolated. Take some time for yourself to really get, the details that you need to fix that's going on in your life for you and get those out of the way. And then on August 21st, that is when Venus enters Virgo. Now, you guys are ruled by Venus. This is your planet. She was having a lot of fun in Leo, but she kind of goes into her fall in Virgo where she doesn't really, she's not good at doing Venus things. She doesn't have the energy for it right now. Venus in Virgo is kind of like, really valuing the tiny specific details, seeing those things. However, Venus can also get overwhelmed with the specifics. Like, it's kind of like, planning a wedding. It's like you have so much specifics to do, but you just want to have fun and you just want it to look good. And so while Venus goes into Virgo, this is kind of like, seeing where, having that drive to get the details done, but kind of being exhausted by it, not enjoying it as much. However, while Venus goes into Virgo, she's also entering your 12th house, which is a course of isolation, alienation, repressed and unacknowledged parts of yourself. Being a little bit blinded by things and not seeing things. The 12th house is also the house between worlds. It's a weird area. And I think while Venus goes into Virgo as well as Mars, this is a weird time for you guys. But while Venus goes through Virgo, I think this is also a good time to do more self-reflection, like I said earlier. But with Venus kind of putting a flavor to things now, I think this is you guys starting to have a little bit more value and seeing a little bit more benefits in being more alone and focusing on the tiny details that you need to realize about yourself that maybe you want to fix, or maybe you want to do something with, or maybe it's just good feedback for yourself. And then on August 23rd, that is when the sun also enters Virgo, and this is just bringing the light to this area. This is the sun, the luminary, bringing light to where things are usually dark, where things are usually not seen. So I think that there's going to be a lot of things coming up for you while the sun enters Virgo, and Mars and Venus are in there that are coming up that maybe you didn't realize before, maybe that you didn't see, and they're very specific things. And I think the best thing for you guys right now is to see those things, reflect on them. Don't take it to heart if it's anything super crazy, but focus on what tiny action steps can you take now that are going to lead to a bigger result later on. And then the next day on August 24th, that is when Venus conjoins Mars. And while Mars is in Virgo kind of getting frustrated of all the tiny things it has to do, Venus, conjoining Mars in Virgo is kind of like, hey, we can calm down with this. We can, not everything has to be so specific. Like, we got to add some more fun and flavor and texture into here. Like, how can we make the tiny details beautiful and nice and at least enjoyable? And, again, like I said with Venus and Virgo, she's kind of like overwhelmed and exhausted with all of the things that are on her plate. While Mars is attending to those things, Venus can kind of like bring a little bit more fun and pleasure into that. And while this is in your 12th house, I think this is, again, focusing on the things that you could repress, that you don't acknowledge, seeing them for what they are and being able to focus on them, both with, being able to actually tackle them and take it on, but also being soft on yourself and showing yourself more self-love and more self-care. And then on August 29th, as if we couldn't get enough Virgo energy, we have Mercury entering Virgo now. And as Mercury, this is Mercury's domicile sign. This is where Mercury operates really, really well. As Mercury starts to enter Virgo, I think this is when things are going to start to really clear up and start to really make sense. As Mars and Venus have been in there, you've been seeing a different flavor of things, and Mercury going into Virgo is starting to make sense of this all and starting to communicate and express how you're feeling a little bit more through a logical sense and using some reasoning and some rationality. And then, of course, the next day, we end August off on August 30th with the new moon in Virgo. And like I said before, as you're focusing on these tiny things and things are coming up, this new moon is kind of giving us an opportunity to, reset some intentions on the specifics. And for you guys, this has to do with things that you repress and things that you don't acknowledge. What needs to be cleaned up and cleared out? What needs to be organized and filed for you guys? So with that being said, thank you guys so much for being here and liking and sharing and commenting and subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys, and I'll be seeing you next month.